Let me just hear both of you all's questions, and then this is going to be it.
And I'll try to say this as quick as I can. My name is John Stannard. I'm with the Church of Scientology's National Affairs Office here in D.C. And I have a dual role. I have a programmatic role because we have a program inside the jails and outside the jails called Criminon that I've been a volunteer in D.C. jail for about 10 years. We also have a public policy component that I'm now representing. Nikichi knows this because I'm under her leadership, part of some of the working groups at Open Society. So here's my question. This is obviously a multifaceted problem, and I really appreciate the personal stories that you four guys gave us today, because this is really important. It's this problem is about the personal stories and the devastation to the country and to the individuals and the families. But every journey requires a first step. And you've talked a little bit about possible solutions. We've heard a little bit about what the U.S. Sentencing Commission might be able to do. There's a whole bunch of different bills floating around in Congress. You've talked about your family impact or family responsibility statements, which I wasn't familiar with before. So my question is to the panel, you know, there's going to be a lot of steps to get us away from the condition that we have before us right now. What are the next most important things? Like what are we going to do now and in 2015? What would you like to see done both congressional level or agency level like U.S. Sentencing Commission? I'd like to hear some sort of practical ideas as to next steps.
Okay, before you respond, let's get the last question and just do it global because we really have about 2 minutes. Go on, yes.
I was going to make a comment. Glenn earlier mentioned that this is low-hanging fruit, and across the country in many of the probation districts, there are a lot of probation officers that are including information about a defendant's family already in reports. As Pat had mentioned earlier, judges are asking for discretion, and we've also learned, I've learned in my research at the Osborne Association, that judges are asking for this information, which is why a lot of the probation districts are providing it. So it's an easy lift to make this a mandatory requirement for this information to be included, to standardize the practice, to make sure that all the judges have the information they need, and then to go a step further in allowing for them to have discretion to be able to look at each case at a case-by-case basis.
Okay, like half a minute responses. Who wants to?
Well, in some ways, Allison answered it, which is if you're looking for low-hanging fruit and you're looking at a federal level, much of the things that are I think most important have to be done at the state level. Federal level, the family impact statements and the whole ability to have judges consider the impact on families, combined with a big uptick in training that would go along with for probation and law enforcement agencies about the impact of incarceration on children. When people don't know, it's much easier to do this. So I think it's pretty low-hanging. Like right now with the arrest policy, we're working on a roll call video that's going to be 4 minutes that can be showed in every roll call in every police department in the country. That's, you know, nobody wants to hurt these kids, they just don't know how they are. So I think that's pretty low-hanging fruit, is this requirement, and we can give you the actual, it's like adding 9 questions. It's not that hard.
To your question as to what we do next, I'd have to say pretty much what we're doing right here. Listen to the people who've been personally afflicted by it, talking to the people who can potentially do something about it, and I think that's really the best thing we can do, is just keep putting faces to the stories and then listening to them, learning from the mistakes that were made.
I think Allison made the point. Judges need the information. They are wanting it. Making it mandatory that there is a family impact statement so that they get the full picture. Right now, they have no idea what's happening. What we just shared is something that judges need to hear about. And then we need to give them the discretion to make a decision and actually have access to alternatives to incarceration. Access to the different supports that we're offering on the back end. And I know I'm repeating myself, but this is critical. We need to bring it to the front end. The reason being is that, does everybody know about the $1 million blocks where they're picking people from and putting people from certain communities, generally African American, Latino communities, into prison? This is damaging those communities. Those blocks are drowning. When you pull a parent out, you already have a family that's struggling, in a community that's struggling. Education, health, employment. of course is going to destroy family. It's going to destroy communities as well. So we really need to stop that madness at this point and really bring everything to the front end and say, here, people want to do their best for their children. Kids want to thrive. We need to give people the support that they need to thrive. Because we really need to break out of what Nikiche presented initially in terms of our past history.
Okay, Pam, and then Glenn, why don't you close us out?
I think advocates that actually talk to children and spend enough time with them so that they know who they are is part of the equation. And so if we can't just set them aside as a silo unto themselves. They're part of the unit, and they're part of the issue, and they're part of the conversation. And so we need to do more to really illuminate what they're going through, what they're going to go through, and what we can stop them from going through. So.
Sure. So you asked me to close this out, and I'm going to try not to go off message here. I think what's important to remember is that we have a criminal justice system that is really and truly, at this point, very insidious in the way that it operates. And when we think about reforming the system, unfortunately, because we've been doing this for 40 years, it's difficult for us to be really bold in our advocacy for reform. But here's an issue where it's like a common thread, right? Family. And I don't care who you're talking to. Like, they don't have to know about mental health treatment. They don't have to know about drug and alcohol treatment. This is about families, like keeping families together. And every American, in one way or another, understands the value of keeping families together. And I think that unfortunately, and here's where I'm going to go off message a little bit, the conversation we keep having about reforming the system often starts with the word risk. Mm-hmm. And yet the people we need to help us reform the system have the least appetite for that. And so what I think we need to be doing more of is speaking to Americans about the fact that this system operates in their name, and that this system exists and thrives because we all believe in it, right? This system would not exist if we didn't all believe in it in one way or the other. And that if it's only been 40 years, then we can re-envision this system and we can turn it into something that works. Mm-hmm. And so my recommendation, a few years ago, it probably would have been more concrete and more along the lines of policy. I think if everyone walked out of this room and shared what you learned today with one or two other people and asked them to support a proposal like this, I really truly believe our policymakers tend to follow where their constituents go. And so I would urge you to educate other people about this very important issue. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. We really would like to thank our host, Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson. We'd like to thank our expert panelists, Pat Allard, Glenn Martin, Pamela Clifton, Charles Dalton Telshau, and Elizabeth Gaines. And most of all, we'd like to thank you. Let's give everybody a big thank Justice Gadsby for pulling it all together.